And hello, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And this evening, we're continuing or extending our series of Exploring Wellness, a series that was begun by our good friend Nick Petoskey. And he brought in a number of really excellent consulting people with Karma Doc, who has become a great friend, as well as Apothecary, whose contribution is really wonderful. We've had Scott Perez from Allison, and we are using his product every day, and it's all very interesting and new to me. But the whole idea of nutrition shouldn't be new to all of us. It should be something that we just innately know, that perhaps we learned when we were growing up automatically by watching our parents have good nutrition. But somewhere along the line, we have lost that tradition of good nutrition. Uh, Selecting food not because it's tasty or fashionable, but because it's nutritious. And how important could that be for somebody like me who's battling cancer, or somebody like you who has other issues that perhaps you don't realize how crucial it is to concentrate on good nutrition? And
I
so
have to jump in.
Marcia wants to jump in. Let's go. All right.
Because something you just said made it sound like your choice is nutritious and tasty. And it's not an either or. It can be both.
Okay, fair enough. And Marcia, I'm so glad that you decided to do this tonight. This is your kind of debut as a content provider, and I am really just thrilled that you've decided to do this. I've benefited so much from your wisdom and knowledge and study of nutrition. I feel very healthy, despite the fact that I have a diagnosis that nobody really want, but I feel great. And I think that has to do with how well I eat, how well I take the right vitamins, and get some exercise. But let's focus more on the food aspects of wellness tonight. And so let's get started and jump in. Where would you like to start?
Well, this is something that has been rattling around inside my head for a while. This whole issue of nutrition and the fact that there is so much good information out there about nutrition, about what is nutritious food, what keeps us healthy. And I've been reading a lot lately. I mean, by lately, I mean in the last few years. And one of the things that just keeps coming back to me is the fact that there's so much good information out there, and it's not being promoted, it's being kept from us, and it's not being followed by the healthcare providers, by the people who are in a position to educate us, to teach us how to eat properly. And that includes our education system, our government, everybody. They're giving us a lot of bad information about nutrition. And, it's easy to say, I don't understand why, but we can speculate about why. But the fact is that there's a lot of good information out there, and finding it, making it available, exposing everybody to it is something that I feel is an important addition to not only the whole wellness series that Nick did for us, but also the work that you're doing, because I think that there is an overlap in the fact that our well-being isn't always what is being promoted out there. Let's just put it that way.
I would just put it more simply. Our well-being is under attack.
Yes.
We are targeted, and we are targeted with bad food.
Yep.
We are targeted with unhealthy food choices, and seduced into making them while we're children, when nobody tells us any better, because after a few generations, the knowledge has lost. The whole idea of a holistic approach to being healthy and well. Everything now has to be solved with a pill or some surgery.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not about how to stay healthy, how to be healthy, how to live life in a way that does not cause or promote or invite disease. It's all about living life in a way that we get sick so that somebody can sell us a pill. And it's horrifying. It's really horrifying because there is so much good information. And, this is something that I started, golly, I'm going to guess probably around the early 90s, maybe 92, 93. I read a book called Food for Life by Dr. Neal Barnard, and it really changed my, well, let's just say it was the start of this path that I have been on ever since, seeking out good nutrition. And this book promotes healthy eating, a plant-based diet, low-fat plant-based diet. And, so that was something that I had started even before I met you. And I think by the time I met you, I was vegetarian. I hadn't become vegan yet. That came later. And that's something that I think you and I have done together. But, I think that when I started studying this back in the 90s and reading about nutrition, at the time I questioned, why isn't why isn't the government promoting this information? Why isn't the government sharing with us about plant-based diets and the value of plant-based diets? Why is the government allowing all of the poison and just horrible substances that's in our food supply? I didn't get it. And I actually think it's thanks to your work that it became a little clearer to me. And also the fact that I had seen this disconnect between what I knew to be true about good health and good nutrition and the combination, and the disconnect between that and what we are being told. It also helped me to embrace your work better because I did see that there was so much misinformation out there just around nutrition that there had to be plenty of other misinformation that was out there.
Yes, and you'd think that our government food policy would be pro health, but it's not. And what it is it's pro the goals of the corporate elite that run the big corporations like the Coca-Cola Corporation, the Archer Daniels Midland, and all of the big food providers. Well, they're very happy with having a Henry Kissinger set our national food policy. And so when he got that National Security Strategy Memorandum, NSSM 200, through, it's public policy to use food as a means of winning or losing a country, to use GMOs to take over an economy.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now like, you can't even tell whether a piece of bread has a GMO in it or not anymore. And there's hardly any labeling. So that altered food with genetically altered food products is just unbelievable that we would actually
Absolutely.
be eating this stuff.
Absolutely. And we have no idea what the long-term consequences are. Everybody says there's no proof that GMOs are dangerous, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe. We have no idea. And, the fact is that in itself is controversial, but we don't know what the long-term consequences are to the environment, to the ecosystem, and to just embrace it and put it out there and then use all of these excuses. So, people will say GMOs are necessary because, that's going to help us end starvation. We could end starvation now. Food policy, global food policy is perpetuating some of the horrible conditions that are going on around the world in other countries and right here in our own country. And we could end hunger. We don't need GMOs to do that.
Since World War II, our medical industry has become more and more consolidated around the needs of insurers, and the medical industry has risen to the task of building an infrastructure that can treat unhealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
Just drive down any highway and you're going to see a big medical building on your left. Probably a doc in the box on your right, a hospital a couple miles down the road, and all of these specialists in different condominiums and little condo complexes, that are specialized in all the problems that they knew were going to come along if we kept using poor nutrition habits.
Well, and on that same road, it's going to be dotted with fast food places.
Exactly. And that's, I guess, where we can start getting into the content, because, these corporate donors to politicians have a tremendous impact on policy. And where is that more evident than when you look at the traditional food pyramid that we
Mm-hmm.
were provided with back in the 60s and 70s, that it's no, even the government has taken it down. They know that it's wrong.
I know, but you know what's amazing to me? You and I talked about this earlier today as we were preparing our content for this conversation. And I brought up the food pyramid. And I said, the government has this food pyramid and blah, blah, blah. Well, I went to pull the food pyramid so that we could have it to show. Do you know that they did away with the food pyramid in 2011? I had no idea. I mean, they did away with it, but they didn't tell us. When you go to the website for USDA, which is where the food and nutrition information lives, you can't find the food pyramid because they did away with it in 2011. But what are they doing to promote the new policy? And the new policy is better than the food pyramid, but it's still, I mean, as we will get into in a few minutes, it's still got some kooky stuff in there. But, that was 12 years ago that they did away with the food pyramid, but they didn't tell anyone.
And our life expectancy is going down.
It's going down.
Our
Yes.
population is starting to have, challenges of an inverted pyramid, where there's not going to be enough children to feed the old people with their labor. And all of this has been fashioned behind the scenes. And now we're hitting the part of it where our health is being sacrificed for the sake, again, of the corporate agendas.
Well, and it's a win-win situation, but not for us. It's win-win for the food manufacturers and the health industry. They're the ones that are getting rich, making us sick, killing us, feeding us a whole lot of really horrible stuff, because they feed us that stuff and it tastes good. We get addicted to the sugar, the salt, the whatever, the fats that are in all of this processed food that they sell us. And they get, some corporations, the ones you mentioned, the Coca-Colas, the Midland, what's the name of it? Archer Daniels, Midland. They're all getting rich selling us this food. Then we get sick. And the healthcare industry, the healthcare providers, the insurance companies, and of course, Big Pharma. They're all getting rich, treating those diseases, giving us pills for those diseases. They're not necessarily curing us or saving us or helping us. They're just getting rich. And like you said, our life expectancy is going down. And that's horrifying. And people don't realize that either. There's another piece of information that nobody's talking about. Our life expectancy is going down.
It's one of the things that we just lost any sense that we have any control over. And we should all of us be working to extend our lives, because and it goes along with the devaluing of older people. The idea that older people are useless eaters, and therefore, why not go ahead and let their health get compromised? I mean, I don't even want to talk about the way they treated people in the elderly homes in the COVID era.
Yeah.
There's no respect for people who have lived a long, healthy, and good life. They don't care about those people. They just want the ones that they can exploit while they're young and willing to perhaps take a participate in a war or to do something else that they want that serves them and not the people that hopefully, you grow up with. Most people grow up with the idea, if I want to help my country, I want to be a good citizen, I want to be a good person, but it's not on the agenda for these folks.
Mm-mm.
I don't know why it is, but they've got control over the media. And how did that happen? Our government, just said, okay, there should be only be so many channels, there should be only so many airwaves, and we're going to auction them off. Auction them off to what? To the people that can afford it.
Well, the deregulation of the 90s had a lot to do with it. When I was in college 100 years ago, and my major in college was radio, television, motion picture, and I had a, a couple of decades in the radio business after college. But everything I learned in college is wrong now because they totally deregulated the broadcasting industry. When I got into broadcasting in the late 70s, at the time, one entity could only own 7 a.m., 7 FM, and 7 TV stations. That was the max that any one entity could own. And then they totally did away with those rules in the 90s when everything was deregulated. And one entity pretty much bought up all of the broadcasting facilities in the country. And it ruined the radio business. It ruined the TV business. It's one of the reasons, not the only one, but one of the reasons I ended up getting out of the radio business. But, now we have all of the broadcasting facilities are owned by just a handful of little corporations that have no limits on what they can own. And so they have these editorial policies that apply to everybody. And so everybody's saying the same thing. It's horrible.
But it's a narrative that is forced upon us all 24/7 that, you need to stop off at 7-Eleven and grab something. You need to grab, new phrase, let's grab lunch.
Mhm.
Give me that lunch. Okay, let's get back to work,
Well, right.
Let's grab lunch. Well, the whole what we want to talk about tonight, I think, is, you said it at the beginning of the show, a plant-based diet.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are going to go like, "Oh, I'm changing the channel because I don't want to
It's
have
hard.
I
Yeah.
don't want to have a plant-based diet. That sounds dull and boring and everything else." And I'm a pescatarian myself. I do eat fish. I had a nice piece of fish last night, but you were learning about protein and how even with something as healthy as a nice piece of
Mhm.
salmon, you need to limit that particular kind of food, even if you are going to indulge at all. But uh, so what is the reason that you emphasize, and I think the people that you've studied have convinced you is the only real healthy diet, and that is a plant-based diet?
Plant-based diet.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are, thank goodness, a handful of doctors out there who have devoted their work to studying how diet affects our health and promoting that and writing books about it. And these are all so I have read a number of these books. I mean, I mentioned earlier, Dr. Neal Barnard, and is the one whose book I read to begin with. I think I had mentioned when we were doing the wellness series with Nick, I had a heart attack 2 years ago. And after my heart attack, I was aware of Dr. Dean Ornish and the work that he has done with using a plant-based diet to reverse heart disease. And so I went out and got his books and started reading them as well. And there are several others. There's a doctor that I'm not that familiar with. His last name is Esseltine, Dr. Esseltine. And right now I'm reading a book by Dr. Colin Campbell, and I think we'll end up talking a lot about that book called The China Study. Another book that I read, and I'll never get his name right, is Fiber Fueled, and it's by a gastroenterologist, Dr. Let's just say Dr. B. Um, and he also promotes plant-based. But all of these doctors have tapped in to studies that have been done and been ignored. And that's the thing that makes me crazy, is that there's so much good information out there, very good scientific studies that have been done and been ignored. And then all of these doctors have done their own work as well. And what they have found is that a plant-based diet can prevent disease, can reverse disease, can help us live longer. Oh, the Blue Zones! I didn't even mention that one. The Blue Zones is another program where the author of the Blue Zones went around and started studying places where people live longer, and plant-based diet was a big part of that as well. So there's just all sorts of wonderful, really good information. I mean, Dr. Ornish has taken the plant-based diet and he's created a program where the people with heart disease come and they eat this plant-based diet, they exercise, they learn how to manage their stress, they learn how to really build communities so that they have a good support system. And he has shown that by doing these things, you can reverse heart disease. This one that I'm reading now, the China study, is, and I've only just come across it. I don't know how I had missed it, but 2 or 3 different times in the past month or so, in the different things that I was reading, I saw reference to it, and I thought, I got to read this book. And in fact, I bought the book like 2 or 3 months ago and then started reading other things. And so I went back to it and started reading it just last week. And it was one of the reasons that I came to you and said, we got to talk about this. My gosh, the China study is breathtaking. First of all, this doctor, Dr. Campbell, he came across a study that was done in India that showed a correlation between protein intake and liver cancer. And what he found was groups where 20% of the calories came from animal protein had a higher incidence of liver cancer than groups where they got only 5% of their calories from protein. And he was amazed by this and stunned and surprised by it, and in fact mentioned it to some of his colleagues, and they poo-pooed it. They either brushed it off as, there must be some mistake, there must be something wrong with it, it's from India, they don't know what they're doing, or he had a conversation with a doctor at MIT who said, oh, well, they must have reversed their data. It must be that the data, it's that the people with the lower protein had more cancer. But it wasn't reversed. That's what it was. And he has gone back and done additional studies using some amazing data sets from China, and then following up on his own with studies, and found an amazing correlation between animal protein and disease, heart disease, cholesterol, cancer, all different kinds of cancer. It's just, like I said, it's breathtaking. The data are there. The data show that there is a correlation between eating animal protein and illness and disease. And like I say, it gets ignored. And I think because of the work that you do, as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, they know this, the big they,
Yeah.
they know this. And so they're encouraging us to eat badly so that we get sick. It's horrible, because people don't have to suffer with all the illness that we have out there. And you and I shouldn't have to join Facebook groups in order to learn about things like fenbendazole, and we should be able to get good, solid, valuable, useful healthcare information readily available to us. And it's like we have to go digging and crowdsourcing the information because it's the only way we're going to get it. It's insane.
One of the things that kind of it took me a minute. It took me a while to really understand that protein is not only comes from animals. You know,
Right.
I thought, that if you didn't eat your protein, you weren't going to have enough energy. You won't, your health will decline, and you won't get anything done. So you better get some protein in you. That's the way that you grow up in this country thinking, hey, eat the big piece of red meat, and because you need that protein. Well, that piece of red meat is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
With the
Well, protein is so misunderstood. And Dr. Campbell talks a lot about that in his book on the China study. He talks about the fact that protein has been put on this pedestal as, the nutritional all-star, that we need protein, and the more protein we have, the stronger we're going to be. And
right,
I was actually raised with that philosophy, and I think many of us were,
yeah,
that we were told that how important protein is. And of course, we've all been in restaurants where, you order a salad and then they say, would you like a protein with that? And I don't know if I've ever actually done it, but I know that I've always wanted to go, yes, please put some beans on that salad for me. The fact is, plants have plenty of protein. But what happens is that our bodies, everybody knows protein comes from amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And our bodies manufacture a lot of those amino acids. But there are, I believe the number is 8, that they're called the essential amino acids, because our bodies don't make those amino acids. So we need to get them from food. Animal protein has all 8 amino acids. So it's often referred to as complete protein, or it's referred to as high quality protein. And they use this word quality to mean complete. It's not that it's of, somehow better. It's just all 8 amino acids. But all 8 amino acids are available in plants. They may not, a certain plant may not have all 8, but another plant will have the ones that this one is missing. You get all 8 amino acids in a plant-based diet. And the thing that's often that's so important about a plant-based diet, or really any diet, and that is to eat a variety of vegetables, a variety of fruits, a variety of beans and legumes, a variety of grains. To eat, I remember when one book I read, it said eat all the different parts of the plant. Eat some vegetables that come from the stem, and some that comes from the flowers, and some that are the leaves. And I always think about that. And of course, all the different colors that plants come in, the yellow ones, the red ones, the green ones. As long as we eat a good variety of vegetables, and this myth that you have to eat them at the same time, not true. Just in your diet as a whole, as long as you're eating a good variety of vegetables, you're getting all the protein you need. You're getting the same protein that you would get from animals. It's not any better. It's not higher quality. It's not less quality protein. It is the protein that our bodies need. So this myth that you can only get protein from animals is completely wrong. But it is so ingrained in our nutritional policy in this country for sure, but in a lot of countries. I was looking at some statistics that are in the book, the China study, and I was actually a little surprised to see how high the cancer rates are in some European countries as well. And there was definitely a correlation between eating animal protein and cancer.
In in looking at the old the food pyramid, and one of the things that you and I have talked about in particular is dairy products.
Hmm.
And like it used to have a part of the pyramid was you needed to get some dairy products. You needed to drink some milk, eat some cheese, however many different varieties of it. But uh, dairy products, again, we look at, what are we talking about? Big food, big sugar, big dairy, and
Hmm.
these, and and along with big dairy comes the horrible farming practices and the way that they treat the poor cows. It's horrible. We don't have to live that way, is what we're saying.
Right,
But
right.
but but
And
tell us about dairy.
we are the only species that consumes the milk of another species. Nature created milk so that mothers could nourish their newborns, their infants. That's the purpose of milk. And cow's milk is meant for baby cows. And what happens in the dairy industry is that these mothers give birth and their babies are taken away from them immediately so that they can be milked, so for dairy, for the farmers to sell their milk, and sell us our milk so that we can drink cow's milk. And it's you read stories, and as you know, I kind of follow several farm sanctuaries, and you read stories about cows whose babies are taken away from them immediately, and these are loving animals who, they're distraught. But more importantly, we don't need milk. Nature intended that milk for baby cows. And like I said, there's no other species that consumes the milk of a different species. We were meant to drink our own human mother's milk. And once we are past infancy, we no longer need it. We can get all the nutrition we need from the plants that we eat, from the other foods that we eat. We don't need milk. We don't need dairy. And furthermore, dairy has been associated with disease, with cancer. As you and I have learned with your prostate cancer, dairy is associated with prostate cancer. We were reading something today that said dairy is associated with breast cancer. This one of the studies that was done in the China study, they actually used milk protein when they were doing this study to confirm whether or not there was a correlation between cancer and protein. And they used milk protein, and sure enough, those individuals with who consumed a higher rate of this milk protein had a higher rate of cancer. So, we don't need dairy. It's a myth that we can only get our calcium from dairy. There's calcium in plant and a lot of other sources. Uh, how much calcium do we need is even debatable, because, and this is something that I read many, many years ago, that animal protein causes our bones to actually leach calcium. So the fact that Western diets are so high in animal protein means we need more calcium, because by consuming all of this animal protein, we are actually losing calcium. But if you stop with all the animal protein, then you don't need as much calcium. And in other countries, they don't consume as much calcium as we do, but it's because of our Western diet that's so focused on meat and animals.
I've really started to taste food, taste different vegetables much more since we've cut out the sugar. When we were first married, I was stopping by the Safeway and bringing home a couple of Safeway pies. I would eat a whole pie in a night easily. And you think about all the sugar that went in there.
Hmm.
We were looking at some statistics earlier about sugar and the
Oh, we should show that.
yeah, let's
Why don't
do
you
that.
bring that up? because
Yeah.
it's so interesting. And while you're bringing it up, I'll explain what it is that we are showing.
Now, which one is it?
The one on the right. Because as I mentioned, we no longer have, the USDA no longer has the food pyramid. They replaced it with this thing called My Plate. And you can see there on the screen in the upper left is a little square with a circle inside. And that circle says it says fruits, vegetables, grains, protein. And then there's another circle on the upper right of that circle that says dairy. This is the new recommendation from the U.S. Department of Agriculture in what is in our food and nutrition recommendations that they give us now. So you can go to their website and you can actually get a somewhat personalized diet plan. And so we went in and we put in John's age and height and weight, and I think that was it. You put in your age, your gender, your height and weight, and they give you this is what you should be eating. So for a man John's size and age, they're saying that he should consume 2,400 calories a day, and this is how his calories should be divided up. He should consume 2 cups of fruit, 3 cups of vegetables, 8 ounces of grains, and 6.5 ounces of protein, and 3 cups of dairy. And I'm just horrified that they're saying 3 cups of dairy. That's part of this recommendation. You can see on the bottom, on the left, on the bottom, there is this I guess pinkish circle that says limit, and then it says limit added sugars to less than 60 grams a day. And we both looked at that and we were like, what? 60 grams? I mean, we are both, and we have been for a long time, we have limited our sugar, but now we're down to 0 sugar, and it's not that hard for us because we do so much whole foods. We don't buy processed foods. Right.
You got to read those little bitty
because
labels.
We don't consume that much processed food.
Yeah.
But when I say processed food, I'm thinking about something like a jar of spaghetti sauce that is something with a lot of different ingredients. And when we do eat those things, we read the label very, very carefully. We only buy the spaghetti sauce that doesn't have the sugar or the salad dressing. But it is shocking, absolutely shocking and frustrating how many things you wouldn't even think have sugar that does. I bought a couple of cans of butter beans, just plain old butter beans, because I was making something that called for butter beans. I don't remember even what it was. So I went to a local market. I didn't go to our regular grocery store, but I went to a local market because it was closer. And I bought these butter beans and I brought them home. And then I thought, I should check and see if they have salt added, because if so, I'm going to rinse them really well. And so I look at the ingredient, the fine print. Oh my gosh, there's sugar in the butter beans. And I don't even think of a can of butter beans as being processed food.
But this is added sugar. This
is added sugar. Right. It's not like sugar that's occurs naturally in the beans. It is on the ingredients. It said butter beans, sugar. It's just crazy.
Now, 60 grams of sugar is extremely shocking to me when I saw that, because that you can visualize that as approximately a half a cup.
It's about half a cup. There's
if you ever took one of those little measuring cups, we're talking about a cup that's maybe 4 inches tall and 4 inches in diameter, and fill it up with sugar.
Right.
Oh.
It's just
can you imagine eating all that sugar, just eating it? Well, everybody's eating it subtly without knowing it,
right,
every day.
Or more. I mean, they're telling us that's what we should do. We should limit ourselves to that, as if people are eating more, but they are. We know that they are. I mean, look at all of the, well, we just passed Halloween and all of that candy, but there's just so much sugar that we are eating. And by saying limit it to 60, they're suggesting that it's okay to eat 60 grams of sugar
Right.
every day. That's half a cup of sugar, because we sat there and we figured it all out, because apparently a tablespoon of sugar has 12 and a half grams. There's 12 and a half grams of sugar in a tablespoon. There, now I said it better. And so there is 2 tablespoons in an ounce. And so it would be about 5 ounces of sugar. No, that math is wrong. It's less than that. But anyway, you get the point. It's about half a cup of sugar. And it's just shocking to me that our government is telling people it's okay to eat half a cup of sugar every day of your life.
And I'll just add a story that I've told before, is that maybe about 2 years ago, they built a new little strip shopping center up in La Plata where we pass through all the time. And in that strip shopping center, there is a dance studio for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a donut shop
Mm-hmm.
for the parents that are waiting for the kids. Or you could just stop by and get your donut. And then conveniently next to the donut shop is the dialysis.
Kidney dialysis clinic.
And that's, to me, that says it, that our government, our culture, our planners are so they have no consideration at all for the connection between the sugar in the donuts and the horrible life of going to a dialysis center every other day for the rest of your life, and being dependent upon that and having to spend your money on it. And it's evident of a sick society that we would do that.
Well, and then here's another one under that same list there that they say to limit, and it says to limit saturated fat to less than 27 grams a day.
Wow.
You know what is our greatest source of saturated fat in the American diet? Dairy. So now they're up there telling us to consume 3 cups of dairy a day, but limit your saturated fat. It's crazy. And that's another thing, when we were talking about dairy earlier, that is a horrible source of fat. Even if you're drinking skim milk, or you're still getting saturated fat. And oh my gosh, cheese and all of the other things. Yes, it's yummy, but it kills you. And they're saying limit your saturated fat, but eat 3 cups of dairy a day. It's illogical.
Let's also talk about what they mean by protein. Vary your protein routine, it says. Mix up your protein foods to include seafood, beans, peas, and lentils, unsalted nuts, and seeds.
Yes, soy products, eggs.
Soy products, eggs, and lean meats and poultry. So most people are going to say, well, I'll go for the lean meats and poultry.
Right.
I don't like seeds. I don't, why should I eat seeds, when I can eat lean meats and poultry? And I love me some fried chicken, baby. Oh yeah. And I wanted to say something a minute ago about the criticism of dairy, because I think we need to just step back and say, look, our culture developed in many ways in the single family farm, and those single family farms depended upon that cow or those cows for protein, for energy, and there was a tradition of feeding cow's milk to children that must go back a million years.
Mm,
a long way anyway. I don't know, but it certainly is ingrained in our culture. It came over from Europe. I don't think that it was a natural. It certainly wasn't a Native American culture that
right.
they had a bunch of cows that they herded around
No, and they did just
and
fine.
milked them. You know, they didn't need that.
Right.
And matter of fact, I think they were probably a lot healthier than the Europeans that came.
Hmm.
So that's another example of which I think we need to forgive our legacy beliefs. The people that believed that, yeah, milk was good. Have a glass of milk every day. So many people are still doing that. And I'm just saying that, yes, the government should tell people. Yes, our doctors should be telling us. Yes, our tradition in our families, we should all grow up in a family that knows all this stuff and teaches it so it's not uncomfortable when you become an adult and suddenly you have to cut out all of this crap.
Right. Right.
So, but we don't have that. So, we have to be gentle with things like this. But cutting out, a nice roast beef, it's kind of hard.
It is hard. It is hard. I am always surprised by the people when I talk about, when they ask me about being vegan, and I don't like to talk about it unless somebody is curious and asks, because I don't want to come across as I am telling people what they should be doing. I don't want to come across as judgmental. Um, I mean, I do sometimes, but not that I want to, but I do it anyway. But anyway, and when I tell people and they ask me how I eat, they ask me where I get my protein from. Everybody always asks that question. I actually had a vegetarian ask me that question recently. Um, but they always end up the conversation by saying, "Oh, I could never do that. I love hamburgers," or "I love steak," or "I love chicken. I could never do that." And I get it. I absolutely get it. This is how people are taught to eat. And, I think that we started eating that way, we human beings, because it is tasty. We somehow, somewhere along the way, we discovered that, when you cook a cow, it tastes really, really good. And so you're right. It is hard to make a huge change, and I think it might take generations. If we were to start now and say, okay, we've been wrong, say something magical happened and somebody somewhere decided that we needed to tell the truth, that the government needed to tell us the truth about nutrition, and they started saying plant-based diet is the way to go. I think it would take generations for that change to happen, simply because it is what we are used to. It is what um, our economy's built on it in you know a lot of ways, and so just the practicality of making that kind of a change, but just as human beings adjusting to a different way of eating, I get that it's hard to do. And it took me a while to give up dairy. When I gave up meat, um, I became a vegetarian, and I used to always say, I don't think I could ever be vegan because I couldn't give up ice cream. And eventually I did. Eventually I came to recognize that I had to. But it took some time. It took a little time. So yeah, it's a hard change.
But here's the thing, from my point of view. Okay, um, no, my life is at stake. I have cancer. I have an advanced form of cancer, and everything that I can do to prevent that cancer from progressing, uh, I'm going to do it. And I don't give a damn about giving up meat. I don't care. If you tell me I can't have a piece of salmon anymore, I will give it up. I love it, but I'll give it up because this is the stakes. It really is a question of, do you go in the donut shop, or do you go into the dialysis center? If you've got the idea of, I know I shouldn't be eating this. I know
Yeah.
that all of these hamburgers are bad for me. I know I shouldn't be stopping off at McDonald's for that crazy milkshake on the way home, right? I remember doing that. Um, but I do it anyway because it's like, well, this is my lifestyle. I know I'm going to die someday, but I'm not going to check out of my culture. I'm not going to stop being an American and stop eating like an American, or stop, suddenly uh, have to just alter everything in my life because I don't want to. I'm enjoying my life. But boy, when you have heart disease, or when you have oh my God, or if you had diabetes, and you realize, I'm over the hump now. I'm already broken in a sense. I've got to now do all the work that I could have avoided if I had made that choice earlier in life.
But yes, and it's about informed consent. You know what's at stake,
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
and so you make the choice.
That's right.
But so many of us are not informed. If somebody were to come and say, I know that eating that ice cream is going to increase my risk of diabetes or cancer or whatever, but I'm willing to take that chance because I love this ice cream, then it's informed consent. But they're hiding that information from us, and not just hiding the information, but giving us bad information. They're saying, eat 60 grams of sugar a day. That's okay.
Yeah.
We are not given the opportunity to practice informed consent when it comes to what is on our plate, what we're eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and in between.
That's really, I think, one of the most important points that we've covered tonight is that it's part of being a healthy person, is having the information that you need to make an informed choice. And not, from food policy to everything else in our lives right now, we are not given the information, and instead we're fed a bunch of misinformation and disinformation.
Right.
That is going to cause us to make that wrong choice.
Right.
And that's how our life expectancy is going down. That's how our medical industry is building more buildings every day,
And making more money. I mean, the fact is, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me. I don't, but right now, about 20% of our consumer spending is spent on healthcare. And it wasn't that way back in the mid 20th century. I don't remember what it was back then, but the fact is, more and more of the money that we spend is going towards healthcare. And imagine what it would be like if we didn't have to spend all that money on healthcare, and we could spend money on other things.
Giving yourself a 20% raise.
Right. A 20% raise. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's call up the other graphic that you wanted to discuss tonight, because this is a different idea of what the old food pyramid. The government provided that daily plate idea that we just discussed. But when I asked you to, could you find a graphic for a good nutrition program, and you called this one up. So let's put it up there, and
because what you said to me was, do we need to make a new food pyramid? And and that's when I said, no, we don't, because others already have. And that's this graphic. This graphic, and you can go ahead and put it up. This graphic is from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And this is the graphic that they use in all of their information. And it's a wonderful, wonderful organization that promotes plant-based eating. And they've had wonderful success with reversing diabetes, with reversing heart disease. And it's about eating fruits, grains, vegetables, and legumes. And those are really the 4 food groups. We don't need the dairy. And the protein doesn't just come from legumes, as the My Plate graphic suggests from the USDA, we get the protein comes from all of these things. But this is, and fruits and vegetables, we all know what that is. The grains, rice, wheat, whole grains is what's important. And that was the other thing on that My Plate graphic. It doesn't emphasize the need for whole grains. And whole grains are absolutely necessary. And it's not just wheat. There's, all different kinds of interesting grains that people can eat. We do barley. And in fact, we get locally grown barley that's really, really tasty. And there are all different kinds that are so interesting. Legumes, it's beans, it's nuts, it's seeds, it's
Brown rice, though.
yeah. Yes, definitely brown rice, because white rice is milled and it has a lot of the nutrition washed away from it. So absolutely brown rice and whole wheat bread. And one of the things that's very often done is that it says whole wheat bread, but when you read the ingredients, whole wheat might be one of the ingredients, but it's not 100% whole wheat. It's made with partially refined wheat as well. And so you have to be really vigilant about reading that list of ingredients and making sure it's 100% whole wheat and no sugar, because that's the other thing that we've found is that a lot of people are putting sugar in bread. But whole grains, whole rice, brown rice, all different kinds of beans, that will get you, and sprouts. We haven't even talked about sprouts, because in some of my research that I have been doing as the result of your cancer and my heart disease, and I have come across sprouts, and I'm in the middle of reading a book right now about the fact that sprouts are these nutritional powerhouses that have, for example, broccoli sprouts, which we eat a lot of now because that has sulforaphane, which has been shown to have some correlation with fighting cancer. But broccoli is high in sulforaphane, but broccoli sprouts have like 20 times more sulforaphane. Sprouts are easy to grow, and they are just these nutritionally dense plants. It's absolutely, and I'm going to use the word again, it's absolutely breathtaking how there's so much potential with sprouts. And I'm actually not sure. I'm going to assume that sprouts, depending on what sprouts, if you're doing broccoli sprouts, then they would be considered a vegetable. If you're doing bean sprouts, it would be considered a legume. And I think that's where they would fit. But sprouts is something that we've been working on putting more of into our diet, and hopefully we'll start growing soon, because I'm told they're very, very easy to grow. It's just you got to have a little bit of space. So I'll work on that.
And time to build your little plant garden to grow your sprouts.
Absolutely. But you don't really need a plant garden. You just need a shelf to put the jars on.
All right. Well, let's get started.
Yeah.
Eat your broccoli, folks. That's what they say. One other thing we didn't mention, and we've got to wrap it up because we've already spent the whole hour. But I don't think we mentioned the importance of what I had today: sauerkraut. I had a nice big
fermented foods.
Thank you.
Yes. And that's something that I learned from Dr. B and his fiber-fueled not only book, but an online course that I took, is the importance of fermented foods for their probiotic capabilities, and having our microbiome well populated with the little bitty bacteria that can help us digest a variety of foods. And that's one of the things that Dr. B is really big on, is creating a healthy microbiome. And that absolutely is fermented foods, things like sauerkraut and kimchi and miso. Miso is something that I knew nothing about, and I'm learning how to use miso. I mean, at a minimum, you can put it in some hot water and it's a yummy little broth that you can drink, but using miso in cooking. But definitely fermented foods every day, to eat some fermented foods. Yep.
All right. And we are definitely increasing our consumption of nuts,
Hmm.
and not so much peanuts, but all the other great nuts that are out there. And you,
And that's from the blue zones. The,
mhm.
the blue zone guy discovered that the people in all of the blue zones, one of the things that they had in common, they ate nuts every day. Just a handful. Nuts are high in fat, so you got to be careful, but a handful of nuts every day.
Well, I'm very happy with my diet. I don't have any complaints. As you know, I was at the doctor's yesterday, and the nurse took my vitals before I saw the doctor, and she says, "Wow, 120 over 80. That's the healthiest blood pressure I've seen all day."
Wow. Wow.
And here I am. Just
Yay.
I'm in my 70s now. I've had,
Hmm.
I've got a lot of wear and tear on me, but to be able to just go around and feel healthy and not feel stressed. I'm dealing with what really has been stressful. I mean, you can read my Substack and see how freaked out I've been over this cancer, but uh, I now feel very confident that we are with nutrition, with the proper medication, and you know, I don't think that this is going to get me. I do believe that
No,
we are solving it just by doing what nature intends in the first place. I think
absolutely.
eating this fruit, legume, grains, vegetables based diet is good. It feels good. It tastes good. I'm loving it, and it makes me feel like I'm living a good life. So, yeah. Well, it did go quickly. Thanks for being with us, everybody. This is our very first show with Marcia. I think I'm going to ask you to come back, and
Okay.
we'll talk some more. I want to get into your cooking ideas too, if you don't mind.
Well, and I'm happy to share that or share some of my sources, and maybe even get go into a little more depth about some of from some of these books that I've been reading, and maybe we can share some of that information too.
Yeah, and let's not forget those pies that you make for me. The nice, the
with with
healthy vegan,
That's right,
pies that are just delicious. And
sweetened with dates and nuts.
yeah,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we'll talk about food and more nutrition the next time. Marcia, thank you so much for being with
Thank
us
you.
tonight.
This has been a great conversation, and of course, thank you to everybody out there who has joined in the conversation and shared their
Yep.
thoughts too.
Thanks for being with us, and thanks for your comments in the chat room. I will definitely review them all after the show. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being with us.